Hey everyone, it's Leanne from ZOE Network, and I'm back on Zoom because I tried that a couple weeks ago and it actually worked. And I thought, I'm going to do this more often and introduce you to people that I just think you need to hear from. And today I'm interviewing Valerie Penny, who is the Timothy Fund Manager. And what that means is we at ZOE Network work with Val to put together scholarships for women around the globe. And Val was just in Lithuania meeting with some of the students that we're partnering with and really trying to support. And so we're just happy to have you here, Val. Welcome.
Thanks. Kind of fun to be here.
Yeah, so where's home for you?
Home is in Port Perry, Ontario, where my husband and I have been pastoring the last 16 years.
Okay.
Grew up in Ottawa at Ottawa Bethel, and then have been in the Toronto area the rest of the time.
So you're an Ontario girl through and through.
I am, although I've got two kids living in BC, so that spans, and one in Halifax. So I've kind of covered the country. I know. It's so hard. They're all spread out.
It's crazy. Yeah, I can't imagine. I have all of my kids close to me still, so I know. But that moment when one of them tells us we're moving, that'll be an interesting moment. So
yeah. Well, God was gracious because the one that's having the baby is close, so I'm good. I'm good.
That's all you need. That's all you need. That's great. So as you know, we're starting the Smarty Dare. And you have been instrumental in kind of putting this together. And the Smarty Dare is basically ZOE Network encouraging women to give to ZOE scholarships. And it's over the 10 days that we're going to do the Smarty Dare, we're going to help inform and let women know about girls and education and all that kind of stuff, but our ultimate goal is that we would mobilize women to give. And anyway, I love it. So how have you been involved in education for a long time? Like, how did you?
Well, I've been working with Global Ed, so that's the equipping arm of international missions, since 2011. Mobilizing men and women around the world with theological training and different kinds of equipping so that they can fulfill the call that they feel God's placed on their lives. Sometimes it's just a little bit of encouragement, a wrap around the call that they feel that enables them to pursue what they feel God's called. I like the fact that even in my own life, it's not a linear thing. Right? You know that God has called you and you take little steps. So I've been grateful for those that have wrapped around in my journey. And that's what we try and do with equipping in various forms.
Yeah, I think about different people in my life that have encouraged me in my leadership. I remember getting a note, like this is years ago when I was a kind of a struggling woman in ministry, and just a note that said, I see you, I see your potential, and you keep going. I lived on for like 5 years, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You get to like recognize, and obviously we're talking about women today, but you get to recognize, women that are strong and called and
absolutely
around the world. Now I know that women sometimes have trouble accessing education. Is that true, or am I just making this up? I don't know.
No, it's totally true. The stats worldwide are clear that women are less likely to be given an education. And it reminds me of a book I read recently by someone who lives in my area, Aruna Pap, a book with a very disturbing title called Unworthy Creature. And she just talked about growing up in the Pakistan area and how that's what girls were called, was unworthy creatures. And I just think that part of what we can do with enabling girls and women to get an education is to challenge that label that is placed on them, that we are all created in God's image. God has a plan and a purpose for each one of us. And sometimes cultural labels, sometimes just a gender bias or an invisibility prevents girls from being able to get the basic kind of education that allows them to get to the point where our ZOE Scholarship women are, which is getting their some of them getting their masters in theology so they can impact other women and men in ministry.
That's huge, hey? Like, because like when we think about ZOE projects and the kinds of things we're involved in,
Mm-hmm.
so many people like, want to get involved, say in gender-based violence or human trafficking or whatever, and those are all really, really important areas that, of course, we're going to continue to show up in those areas.
Mm-hmm.
But education isn't as sexy. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's not that thing that people go, oh, I want to get behind that.
Yeah.
But when we actually take the time to educate and really strategically educate the right kind of people, it can have huge ramifications, in communities and sometimes even in nations, right?
Absolutely. I don't know if this is the right time to introduce it, but I'm thinking of Alfonso in Delhi that I met a couple of years ago. She impacted me at the beginning because here she is, the lone female on the staff of Central Bible College. The name has changed recently, but the fact is she was there holding her own. She was there as a role model for the female students. She was there teaching what she had recently learned. And now God's placed it on her heart to go for graduate studies, right? And she's probably somewhere, between 25, 26, 27. And culturally, she should be married by now, right? And in that society.
Are her mom and dad worried right now, or is it okay?
Yeah, well, she is swimming upstream, right? She is just choosing a different path where she's willing to go out on a limb to follow what God's asking her to do at the social cost of not doing necessarily what's expected of you. I know when I went for my graduate studies, I was having babies at the same time. You were doing it at a different stage of life. Our journeys are different, but I don't think I had to fight people saying, Val, that's a dumb idea, right? I usually got reinforced with it, but I'm not sure that most of the women that receive our ZOE scholarships aren't likely getting that kind of network of reinforcement for what they feel called to do.
And I think that's hard for us as Canadians to grasp, because in Canada, education is a right? Like you show up for kindergarten, you go through,
everybody.
There's scholarships of it, like, there's an expectation that you'll get some sort of post-secondary education, encouragement all the way. We're told, particularly millennials, which you and I both raised millennials, where, we told our boys and our girls, whatever God calls you to, you go for it, you can do it. And so I think we're kind of out of touch with the fact that that's not everyone's experience around the globe. Like we don't have the same starting lines.
No, we don't.
And so, I always think with our ZOE endeavors, it's like, okay, we don't have the same starting lines. There's some areas where we're so much farther apart than what is our responsibility as Canadian women to help those that are, like you say, swimming upstream. I love that.
Yeah, I like the idea that a ZOE scholarship is a very tangible, practical way to help someone that we know, often personally, that we've met, to be able to get that education. It's very practical. And like you say, it might not be that sexy, but education is awesome. To be able to be trained so that, in this case, where we're talking about theological education, so that the church is pure, is holy, is not getting off on all these kind of doctrinal craziness, right? So it's an important part, I think, of what Canadian women can contribute to worldwide.
You mentioned Alfonso, and she's actually one of the ones that through the Smarty Dare, we are going to, in faith believing, we're going to fund that scholarship for her. Just so important. And I love that there's always, some outliers. There's always those girls, those women that are willing to kind of go outside the social constructs, go outside the norms and try something. So that's what she's doing, right?
Yeah.
Because she's not following the script. She's really following a different path. But what I love about it is that when people do that and when they show us that something's possible, suddenly there's all of these girls and women behind them. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, I pastored for a decade here in British Columbia, and I remember pastoring, and I know that women looked at me and said, "Girls can pastor? Really?" Absolutely. So it gives permission for other women, and I think that's amazing.
It is. It's leading the way, and it's opening up, and as more and more women are willing to step into leadership roles, and as more and more women are able to take advantage of education, then in remote places, like we're sponsoring for our ZOE scholarships in Delhi and in Nepal and in Lithuania, in places where the opportunities haven't been the same, we're able to come alongside and really make a difference so that others can also follow those women.
You are preaching to the choir. I'm like, this stuff, I will get up all day, every day for this kind of stuff, because this stuff matters.
It does.
So when you think about Alfonso, so we're gonna, in faith, putting together a scholarship for her. And I'm actually believing for even more money so we can just pour into scholarships this fall. But what difference will that make in her life?
Well, she's stepping out. She's got that blessing by the president of the college, who also happens to be the general superintendent of thousands of churches, Assemblies of God churches in northern India, to move ahead. And yet she's responsible for all of the funds, and her job at the college doesn't pay much. She doesn't have that access to an OSAP loan that we have in Ontario or whatever you have in the different provinces. That those funds, she has to believe by faith that God will provide those somehow. And so in that process, she's decided on going to a seminary in India in order to make sure that the costs, at least are within the local currency. But as she does that, there are so many colleges where she can have an impact and go back even into the college that she's in now. You see, she grew up in the southern India. Southern India has such a strong Bible belt in the Kerala region. Right?
I've never been there, but whenever I've met someone from Kerala, they say it's a beautiful place in the world.
It is. There's palm trees and there's green everywhere, and it's a little bit cooler, and the food is different. The look of the people is different. Their language is different. And so when she graduated from her college in Bangalore, and she was asked to go and work in this college in Delhi, that's not just going from, Abbotsford to Port Perry. Right. That is a different language, a different culture, a different ethnic mix among the people, everything. And not only that, but the north of India is impoverished. So she had to encounter a kind of poverty and the begging in the streets and all that awful stuff where they put the children in front of your cars as you're trying to get through. Just that is almost as different for her as it would be for you and I, Leanne, to try to plant ourselves in Delhi and teach at a Bible college. But she adapted, and to be able to continue to have influence there, you need graduate level studies in order to be able to teach at the undergrad level. And so it just gives her that platform to build a ministry further.
And I tell you, if she's the kind of girl that can go from southern India into northern India and take that on, that's the kind of woman that we want to invest with. Because
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like I've been to northern India. I understand kind of that context she's in. And like you want to make a good investment, right? Like in something that's going to have like lasting impact. And I tell you,
because it multiplies, right?
Exactly.
You invest in one person. She's got all of the students, the female students under her charge right now. But going forward, she has a huge impact. I mean, you don't just teach at a Bible college. You're involved in the caring ministries that are associated with it. You're involved in the students' lives and in the faculty and in the local church. There's huge implications to the calling. Yeah.
And education matters. I mean, you've done your master's. I just finished mine, and it's not about letters behind a name.
No.
It's about equipping you for kind of that next level of leadership. And that's what I love about ZOE Scholarships is it's an opportunity to think strategically about kind of these, I don't want to say rising stars, but like those women that we've identified that have that multiplication ability, and then to invest there, it's just it's amazing. So what would you say to the, there's someone, I don't know, maybe they got their coffee cup in front of them and they just stumbled on this video on Facebook or whatever. What would you say to them about the Smarty Dare?
Well, I dare you.
I dare you.
We have so much to give. We have had opportunities. We know that our daughters and granddaughters will have the opportunity to read, will have the opportunity to have a Bible in their hands. And as we look worldwide at some of these women that we're supporting, they will have access to girls that will not necessarily have those opportunities. They will have relationships. They will have influence where you and I, we might have visited, piloted in and out, but we don't have those relationships. And so I would just say, let's build God's kingdom. I like to think of the fact that Jesus told us to pray that the Lord of Harvest would send forth workers. I believe that he's answering that prayer. And then it's our privilege to wrap our arms around these women, to say, we're standing with you. We may be in a different country. We may speak a completely different language. But you know what? We know that God's at work and we want to be part of what he's doing.
Yeah. It's like, you go, girl.
Mm-hmm.
Go, girl. Your linked arms with women in Canada. And we see you. We see you. Anyway. Oh, awesome. Okay. So those of you who are listening, the Smarty Dare, $25. $25. Maybe do it 10 times. Maybe $250. And then what you're going to do is you're going to buy 10 boxes of Smarties and you're going to go and give them to other women, and you dare them, because this stuff matters. So thank you, Valerie, just for being such an awesome partner in all of this. You got your ear to the ground about what's going on, and we just hope that we build this partnership even more, and that we can be funding lots more, because we have the ability, people. So let's do it. Bless you.
Anne.
Okay, thanks so much.